Well, Austin Williams is from the Future Cities Project, which is a think tank that looks at transforming urban culture for the future. He joins us from North London. Welcome to you. I'd first like to start really with one of the main controversies really with all of this, which is broadly Huawei denies that it's got these close links to the Chinese state and indeed that it's engaged in any kind of espionage. But everyone else seems to talk in shorthand about them being an agent for the Chinese state. So what's your view?
Well, they're not an agent for the Chinese state, but as a private company, everybody has to put themselves forward to be monitored by the Chinese state. So therefore, under Chinese legislation, if a private company is deemed to be doing the wrong thing, then the Chinese state can ask and demand to see all records and have full access. So, it's a fine line, I suppose. It's a little bit different to maybe Amazon, having input into our information, or Facebook find our information as a private company and then maybe refusing to offer that information when the state demands it, which I quite like. China, you don't have that luxury.
A lot of eyebrows have been raised, not least in the Five Eyes community, about the reported UK decision to allow Huawei into bits of our 5G network. What's your view on that? I mean, do you think it's an important part of UK-Chinese relations?
Well, I mean, the world is changing, isn't it? At the moment, we have a situation where all our, first of all, international protocols on 5G haven't really been decided yet. So it's a little bit up in the air as to whether this is a threat or whether we can maintain it or control it or have protocols in place to manage it, which I think is eminently possible. But we have a situation where, Ofcom decisions in this country are the subject, if you have mergers with BT or whatever it might be, they are subject to EU Commission approval. So we have a situation now where the European Union we can do deals, permitted the European countries to do deals with China if it's then deemed not to be in contradiction with national security legislation. So they've Germany, Italy, and the UK and Finland, I think, has actually agreed to now start opening up and negotiating with China. So I think that there is a potential problem, like there is in all international cooperation liaisons, but America is perfectly happy to do aerospace liaison links with China. We're doing deals at the moment. We have the British government in China at the moment trying to do deals with the Belt and Road Initiative. There's, if we're going to be paranoid about kind of connections with the world, then we're not going to get very far. And if we're going to only be able to do connections with whoever the European Union suggests we're allowed to do it with, then that's also a constraint. So I have a real problem with Britain being a bit of a pig in the middle here. America is telling us not to do it. Yeah. European Union is saying we could do it. China is saying we must do it.
Because you run the risk, don't you? You were touching on it there in your answer, and let's move on to the sort of the economic aspects of this. You run the risk that America has taken a pretty strong position on it. America's also really in the midst of a pretty intense trade war with China, and you could end up creating these two blocks, couldn't you, with sort of one superpower, America here, China here, and then Britain gets lost in the middle. And the UK is currently the main destination for Chinese foreign investment. So there is an economic opportunity there, isn't there? You can't deny it.
Absolutely. And I think there's also a paranoia about this conversation, which we also have to cut through, because in many ways, America is, as you say, in the midst of a trade war. I mean, they don't really call it that, but, it's exactly that's what it is. And therefore, the hype which is now being peddled around this subject, is something that maybe we need to kind of calm down the rhetoric a little bit, because I don't necessarily think it's as kind of worrisome as maybe some people suggest. However, it is true that, the Chinese tech is very kind of insidious. Then again, as is maybe Facebook and Twitter in some respects. But, the Chinese social credit system, which you've done many items on in the recent past, looking at how China can actually monitor people's activities, your bank details can be done online through the 5G networks, as well as your credit rating, as well as your, they can penalize you. I was driving in a car in China a couple of months ago, and there was a ping on the driver's phone, and he'd gone through a red light. It automatically deducted the penalty from his bank account within seconds. So there's something marvelous about the technology and the speed and efficiency, and there's something worrisome. My worry is that we're tending to err on the side of paranoia and the apocalyptic visions about what technology can bring, rather than maybe the positives. And that's driven in many ways by this kind of geopolitical wrangling which is going on, not least America and China, but also the European Union having to fight for its position, and Britain in this kind of Brexit scenario. So there's a million and one things going on here beyond the tech, which in some ways is the simplest part of it.
All right, Austin Williams, good to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.